respect to item C, which is rejecting the bids of the fire station, we have our owner's rep here this evening. So what I would like to do, I know that I spent some time talking with him when we got the bids in. I'm not sure who else did, but I'd like to invite Mr. Riachi up to sort of take us through his review of everything that happened. And I think we've probably got some questions, and there'll be a little bit of dialogue about where the project stands at this point.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As Andy stated earlier, we had 10 bids. We look at the low three bidders. The numbers were pretty close, so that gives us a pretty good indication that the low three bidders were pretty competitive, and the numbers were competitive. Once you get past number 5, it started jumping from there. But we still have some pretty good competitive bids, which is indicating of the market and where the numbers are. So we didn't have any big discrepancies. It didn't look like there was somebody that was very low number within the low 5. If you look at them, they're all within a couple percent of each other. So that's unfortunately where the market is right now with the construction industry. As Andy stated, it's over the 10% of the engineer's estimate that was provided to you earlier. So we have to reject them. Our recommendation, along with Andy's, is to go back to bid for fire station number 1, adjust the estimate, and then go from there. So that's kind of where we're at. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
So you think it's better to not wait to go back and bid now? I know we're not sure if prices are going to change, but is 3 months going to make a difference at this point, or?
Unfortunately, 3 months are not going to make a difference. The way the industry, with what we're seeing with the industry and more projects coming online and being bid, we don't see that as 3 months is going to make any difference. Truthfully, if anything, it's going to hurt. It's not going to help, in our personal opinion, from what we're seeing and hearing from material suppliers and other construction projects coming out for bid. On the short term, I don't think that waiting 2 or 3 months is going to help at all. I think going out now, that as soon as we can, because the subcontractors still have their numbers, they can update them fairly quickly. We might be able to get a few more interested, subcontractors, suppliers into the bid process. It's probably best to do it now than to wait. We don't see this in the next short term, 3-6 months, even 10 months. Truthfully, we're not foreseeing numbers coming down in the short term, because the supply is still not catching up to the demand. Is the bottom line.
Minister, when was the engineer's estimate was redone this spring, correct?
It was done in May.
May. Okay, so the difference in cost, I'm in manufacturing, so I've seen over the summer not only cost explode, but availability go from something. 34 years in business, I've never back ordered, I've never had a backlog longer than 10 days, and I ended up at 60 days, 6 to 8 weeks, and sat around waiting to make orders because there was literally no material. Are those in your industry, in construction, are you seeing some of the same ripples? Is that what's driving the cost? We went with an engineer's estimate in May, and then September, put it out to bid in October, only a couple of months, and we yielded in excess of 10%. What are the drivers on this?
It's a combination of shortages of material, labor, forces being busy, not having enough labor force in the out there. So it's a combination of both. You have an issue with labor. You definitely have an issue with material deliveries and driving the cost up. The manufacturers are all back ordered. Everybody's calling for orders, and numbers keep going up. Raw material is hard to get. Shipping is becoming an issue.
Right.
Right now, if you were to order steel, for instance, for a big project, fortunately the fire station, the steel package is not a huge, but let's say you're ordering a 3-story building, you're probably looking at 8 to 10 months before you get your material. I mean, it's just material deliveries have been a nightmare, and cost goes along with it, obviously.
So your opinion is this trend will continue as far as the shortage of materials. Obviously, there's probably an increase in costs for the labor force, right? Because there's only so many. There's people that aren't working. The ones that are working are being paid.
Well, your project is a prevailing wage project because of the nature of the public bidding. So those rates are set. We're not looking at an increase till later on in 2022 from an hourly rate. But obviously, shortage of labor might be a different story that would increase it. But as far as the material is concerned, yes. To answer your question, we are seeing the trend. It keeps going because we do not have. We're not seeing the material getting stocked and stored in at the suppliers' locations where you can call and get an order right away. So that tells us that things are still back ordered. There's still high demand, low supply on it. So yes, it's unfortunately the trend is there.
And would you say the general rise in material contract? I mean, if the supply chain continues to be stretched as it is, and I know that we're catching up with some of the material, but I also know that the backlog of getting it is not changing. The lead times are triple what they normally are. The cost is triple what it normally is. Do you see anything going on? I mean, there's talk about infrastructure bill and different things that are going to cause any of this to crest out, or are we looking at? I mean, we're not looking at a cost that's going to be down closer to pre-pandemic or 12 months ago for any foreseeable future, correct?
I totally agree with that. I mean, unfortunately, in my industry, what we've always seen is the prices go up. They very rarely come back down anytime soon. I mean, it takes something. It takes a crash, unfortunately, for them to come down. I mean, we saw a price adjustment in the construction industry in 08, 09, 10 because of everybody knows what happened then. So we're not seeing those prices are going to drop any drastic until we have the supply and the demand kind of get together or get lopsided again.
And if you have the federal government funding infrastructure spending over the next 5 years, the numbers they're talking about, you're not going to see those kinds of crashes coming.
We're not. I mean, you even if you look at just the residential market, I mean, the demand is so great up there that they can't keep up with the buildings.
Do you have any idea what percentage the amount of steel has gone up since when we get that engineer's estimate in May?
I don't can't give you a specific number, but I would venture to say every bit of 30% on the steel. I mean, there is some specific items, piping, for underground steel. There's a lot of items that have had huge spikes. We've had, like, drywall has gone up, but not as much. Metal studs, wood framing has gone up. Lumber has stabilized a little bit, but we've had the spike earlier. I mean, the lumber spike happened earlier in the year.
Copper, I'm guessing, is through.
Copper has gone up. I mean, and it keeps going. I mean, the part of the issue now that we're facing is, prices are being held for 2-3 weeks, and then there's adjustments. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it stays where it's at. We're not seeing it going down. So it's either it stays or it goes up. So we're not seeing. I mean, they're not. Typically, we used to get on material 2 increases a year. You get a notice, hey, January 1st it's going to go up, a few percent, and then in April you get your notice June 1st, either it stays where it's at or it's going to go up. Well, now it's every 4 weeks, every month is pretty much what we're seeing.
I know in my industry, I know manufacturers that are on their 4th increase in 9 months.
Cool.
I'm on my 3rd round at this point. So your recommendation is that we just go ahead and proceed. We've got a little bit of work to get an estimate back in line, so that when these numbers come in, they'll be a little bit more in line, and just keep moving is the best bet as far as trying to do this optimally and get it done.
That is our recommendation. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Rachi? I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roger.
And I just wanted to, having had some conversation with Mrs. Dawson about things, and Mr. Rosa, and the recommendation is just to go forward looking at only Station 1, forgetting the dual bid, and just sort of setting aside Station 2 at this time and focusing on bidding that project and getting that project through to completion. And we're looking at, I mean, at this point, a chunk of time now. I know construction's been about 18 months, but given the supply lead times, that could probably stretch is what I'm hearing. So we focus on that and regroup on the second half of the project.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board?